All right. Hello, everybody. If you are joining us right now, then you know it is 4:30 on a Wednesday, and it is office hours here on the ViaMonstra Academy. Thanks for joining us this week. I am flying solo again. My partner in crime, Johan, is off busy doing very important things. So he sends his best to everybody. Happy to see that we've got couple of fantastic hecklers here in the crowd. Always happy to see some of my good friends here. I think today I am just going to hop into it, and hopefully you all can help me hold down the fort today. A couple of things that I want to share with you first. I think I've got this sorted out. Got some good practice a couple of weeks ago. Let's see here. Hey, there we go. All right. First thing I came across, or that I wanted to talk about today, was a quick blog post from Yannick Reinhardt on how to actually put together some batch calls or loop through a number of things that you want to interact with when calling Microsoft Graph and batching those things in order to see some performance gains, get a response a little bit faster. There we go. I think I accidentally clicked on his homepage there. So quick post here, but very useful, especially as you start to engage with more users, more groups, more devices, or just generally more resources when interacting with Graph. So I wanted to make sure that I shared this out with everybody. Thank you, Yannick, for putting this together. Another quick tip that I saw gain a little bit of traction on Twitter earlier this week. Post from Niall Brady. I have noticed this in the past and just sort of grumbled about it and moved on. But if you have ever noticed an issue where an icon just disappears from your taskbar, from one of your taskbar shortcuts on Windows 11, Niall reached out on Twitter about this, and it turned out Andrew Blackburn here responded asking if Niall had an executable on his desktop. And sure enough, he did. And after removing those executables and rebooting his computer, that fixed the shortcut issue. So I wanted to throw this out there. It was awesome to see a solution because I hadn't spent any time on it except to just, like I said, grumble and go about my day. But it was kind of an annoying thing. So thank you, Andrew and Niall, for sharing this information earlier this week. That's very helpful. And of course, something that I have to talk about today, as I'm sure many of you heard, Windows 11 24H2 was released. Thank you, Mike, who's in the chat. I know that you pointed this out, as well as many others here. But 24H2 is coming with quite a few interesting improvements. A couple of things that I specifically wanted to point out, even though this is not an exhaustive list. That's why I have this blog post up here for you to share, or for you to review. But this is a pretty cool one here. Lapse policy improvements and new automatic account management feature. This is awesome. We've talked about this here on Office Hours a little bit, where if you are using Windows Lapse and you want to use a custom account, you had to ensure that you were creating that custom account somehow through a remediation, through a PowerShell script, through a Win32 app, through a configuration item, or something like that. Now with 24H2, that account will be created automatically for you. More to come here on this, I think. I mean, since this is so fresh, I and others are going to be doing some testing on this, but I'm very excited to see that. Generally, support for Wi-Fi 7, I think that's a good thing, as long as you have a device that supports it. And then earlier on, in an earlier version of Windows 11, maybe 22H2, we actually got the ability to natively open 7-zip and tar archives. And now we're actually able to create those archives natively in Windows. So I'm always excited about these things getting built in natively. So just another thing to take a look at. Plenty of other improvements and changes as you see here in this blog post. But you can go ahead and start testing this. I know that this is available in Visual Studio downloads for sure. Last I checked, it was not available in VLSC, or rather the M365 Admin Center yet, but that may have changed. Usually it takes a couple of days for those two to even out so that we have consistency across the platforms. I hadn't double checked yet, but we can actually do that while we're talking about it. I believe that the wrong one. Sorry about that. I believe that the feature update policies in Intune were updated already as well. But let's verify that real quick. Let's go to Windows, Updates, Feature Updates. There we go. 24H2 already available. So that is fantastic. I will be creating and deploying that later this evening for sure. So great stuff there. Oh, awesome. I see a comment here from Mark in the chat over on YouTube. Pulled it from the M365 Admin Center earlier this afternoon. Awesome. Thank you for that, Mark. So it looks like it should be available everywhere now. And on the note of 24H2, Gary, I see that you are here in the chat. The OSD PowerShell module has been updated and includes OSD cloud support for Windows 11 24H2. So thank you, Gary, and anybody else that was involved in this. That is very quick and fantastic work on your guys' part to get that out for the community. That is awesome. So I'm going to post not only David's tweet here, but also the PowerShell gallery link to the OSD PowerShell module. So kudos to you guys on that one. Thank you so much. Also had another comment in here. It looks like somebody else was also able to pull that 24H2 ISO. So that is fantastic. So all around, good stuff as usual this week. Make sure these links get added. And with that, see if we've got any questions here to talk through. Yeah, I see a comment here from Gary. Strange that an exe on the desktop causes that shortcut icon issue. I agree. That's a strange thing. Nothing I would have ever thought of, but it's very interesting. So I think in Niall's case, he had CM trace, yep, in a folder containing the sysinternal executable files. So I'm going to give that a try myself, see if that fixes it the next time I have that issue. Currently, it doesn't look like I do, but such a strange problem. And yeah, Gary, if we get support for 7-zip extraction in WinPE, that would be pretty great too. So, anything else on anybody's mind this week? I feel like that was some of the biggest news that I came across, at least in our little neck of the woods, was 24H2 coming out. So I suspect everybody's busy, deploying it to their entire fleet right now. There were a couple of things here at the bottom. There is a new 24H2 security baseline, as well as new ADMX templates for 24H2 that have already been released. I don't think that has changed in Intune yet. But of course, we can always go and double check. Yeah, oh, it says right there, 23H2. So not yet. Jamie is, we do have a question here from Jamie over on YouTube. Have you seen the feature update in ConfigMgr and done the upgrade yet? Guessing we cannot have smaller enablement packages. I have not. If I recall correctly, Gary or Mike, maybe you can confirm this. I think Johan said that this was not an enablement package and this was a full setup.exe. I've deployed 24H2 a couple of times when it was in preview, but have not gone through the upgrade process yet. It's on my list for this evening. Thank you, Gary, confirming in the chat that it is a full upgrade, Jamie. Thank you, gentlemen. This is a good, since I've got the blog post up here as well. The Windows Release Health link that they have here, if you actually have one of the Windows subscription licenses in M365, I think we've gone over this here before in office hours, but if you've never seen this before, you can go into the M365 Admin Center, and under the Health node, there is a Windows Release Health page. And in this, you see all of the various versions of Windows, at least the currently supported ones, even if some of them may be under extended support. And what you can find in here, let's see if we have anything for 24H2, are known issues that Microsoft has acknowledged and confirmed. So it looks like we already have a couple for 24H2, for example. Interesting one, some devices using easy anti-cheat stop responding and receive a blue screen. Maybe some fingerprint sensors that are causing issues. Wallpaper customization applications not working. So there's some interesting things in here. This is a great page to keep on top of what Microsoft is acknowledging as issues across the various versions of Windows. Happen to click on 24H2, but you can see 23H2 is available, so on, as well as Windows Server as well. And I would expect once Server 2025 is released, that will show up in here as well. So really some great stuff in this blog post. I'm happy to see these things come out day one. That is fantastic. Yeah, great question here. Is the lapse account creation and new Intune feature just a 24H2 feature? So all devices would need to be 24H2 to take advantage of this. Yes, last I saw, you must be on 24H2 for the automatic account creation. I haven't seen any word on whether or not they're going to backport that. I know that that's something we would all love to see happen. But at the moment, you do have to be on 24H2. Just checking to see if that was actually in the post here or not. Ah, there we go. Something that we can find out for sure. So there we go. So there's a note right here in the doc. Windows Labs automatic account management feature is only supported in Windows 11 24H2 and Windows Server 2025 and later. So if we just focus on the way that note is worded, nothing about backporting, unfortunately, but keep my fingers crossed at least. All right. Question here from Jamie. Have you seen Windows Hello automatically log in without a camera being connected or no fingerprint put in? This is concerning for passwordless login. I have not, and that is something that I use multiple times a day on a couple of different devices. In my experience, it's always been either the camera's plugged in, and obviously it must be a camera that supports Windows Hello, or a pin is what I'm typically using on a device that does not have any biometrics available. Um, I agree. I mean, not knowing what would be logging the device in would be concerning. That's an interesting one. Perhaps is that something, Jamie, that's just on a single device, or a new device, or device that's been deployed for a while? I mean, I do. Yeah, Gary, same here. Did, good question here in the chat. Did you perhaps set up a companion device, though? Not sure if that will auto log in with Windows Hello. It's interesting. Of course, Jamie, you probably have come across this if you've done any Googling at all, but just came across this post where somebody seems to be having something similar, log on intermittently bypassing Windows Hello fingerprint, with some suggestions down here. I'll throw this in the links anyways, even if you've come across it. But that is not something I've seen. Okay, single laptop with a colleague. Something like this, I try to keep it simple with troubleshooting, and something like this, my mind is immediately going off to not simple at all. Concerning about maybe the biometric hardware itself, if it had already been configured for Windows Hello, maybe there's an issue there. But yeah, that's strange. If you end up figuring out what it is in the future, Jamie, please let us know. All right. Got a question over here on LinkedIn about SKU upgrades. So an Intune and Autopilot user has an excuse me, M365 E5 license. Windows 10 Pro is not upgrading to Enterprise automatically. Any tips on how to fix this? Tried a PowerShell script, but it's not working, and Windows Update didn't help. So this is an interesting one. There have been quite a few SKU upgrade issues over the past this year, let's say. Um, I have been fortunate enough that they haven't affected me personally too much, but they have affected plenty of other folks. So I know Rudy has written about this quite a bit. Let me see if I can pull up some of his posts. Let's see here. Here's actually one of his posts, not only from this year, back in 2022. So a number of different issues to take a look at here. For one, and here's the one from this year. That's what I was looking for. So an update back in April, April's cumulative update broke this for several folks. This is, I believe, supposedly fixed now, but was a common problem over the last several months. So there is, I don't know if this is the PowerShell script that you used, Avi, but there is one fix in here. So I will make sure that I post this. And hopefully these help. Yeah, so Rudy has kept this updated as additional cumulative updates have come out that were meant to help fix this, including a couple of follow-up blog posts. So while I have not come across this myself, I know, like I said, he's been posting about it quite a bit, and this has been a common problem. So I'll drop these in, and hopefully these will help. That's a bummer. I see your comment here, Avi. Used Rudy's script, helped only on Windows 11. All right. I'll go ahead and post these anyways. If anybody else has seen this type of issue with Windows 10, please share. Otherwise, I'll ask around as well. And if I have something for next week, I'll be sure to share it. All right. Question here. Speaking of Windows Hello for Business, has anyone seen where a Hyper-V VM will have a black screen at the very end of Autopilot when it's done and tries to pop the desktop or login screen? I think this started when I set up Windows Hello for Business, but maybe a coincidence. Not specifically. I mean, I see Hyper-V VMs come up with black screens, with some common frequency. But more often than not, I'll either just close the connection and reopen it, or I'll even try to reopen the connection without an enhanced session just to see if there's something going on there. So I agree, it could possibly be a coincidence. I've seen it happen without having Windows Hello for Business configured. But I'd be curious if that actually depends on having an enhanced session up or not. But never noticed that specific commonality with my issues. All right. Question here from Amir. We have a user with a new Surface X Copilot ARM64, which came with Windows 11 24H2. It was joined to AAD and enrolled in Intune fine, but the web sign-in authentication to use for TAP doesn't work, or the temporary access password. Does this work on any of your 24H2 test devices? I wonder if it's an issue only with the ARM release or 24H2 in general. Don't have another ARM-based device, but I'm downloading the x64 ISO now to test myself. I've not seen that, and unfortunately, my ARM experts are not with me at the moment, though I'm not sure that Johan has tested that exact scenario either. So in this case, it's enrolling, and then does the web pop-up come in at all? Or is there an error? Or Very interesting. Very frustrating, I'm sure. Where's my pen? I'll write that one down. Okay. Interesting. Amir says it won't pop up at all, and the event viewer shows that it crashed. Hmm. I have not, but judging by some of the things going on here in the chat, I'm going to be deploying some 24H2 devices this evening, along with the in-place upgrades. I need to make a note for Windows 10 SKU upgrade. I see a comment here from Jamie. I see that snipping tool has slowness if EFS service is off. It takes forever to store the screenshot, waiting on a new update to fix. Is that just with the specific version of snipping tool, Jamie, or is that specific version of Windows that you're seeing that? Newer versions on Windows 11, 22H2, and 23H2. Interesting. Thanks for sharing. I had not heard that. Trying to see if I can find anything on the issue you're seeing, Amir. Be very curious to hear if that is also happening on the 64-bit ISO once you have that downloaded and tested, though, for sure. All right. See a comment here from Sean over on YouTube. We are trying to move BitLocker keys to Azure, but we keep getting false negatives on the script that we're running. Keys are up there, but don't want to migrate the company if tracking isn't working. Yeah, that's an important piece, Sean. Totally agree. Are the false negatives coming from the script itself? For example, is the script just checking I guess I should say, what is the script checking against that's actually providing a false negative, and are the false negatives consistent? The first place that I would look is if you're scripting this or something. I guess if it's in a native report, that's a different story. Oh, you did say on the script here. So, yeah, if it's consistent on the script, I guess I would ask what you're checking to confirm or validate whether um, the key is there. All right, Intune running the script, failed to run. Some devices are fine, others keep failing. No checks, it's just running against devices that are already encrypted. So is it a remediation or just a PowerShell script within Intune, like one of the ad hoc ones? And is it the script that's reporting a failure, or is it just totally failing to run? Just checking on something here while we're working on that. Some great questions today. Wish I had better answers on a couple of them, but great questions nonetheless. PowerShell from the Microsoft page failing to run. If you're licensed for it, maybe give remediations a try rather than just PowerShell, or rather than just the PowerShell script. Sorry, remediations, since they'll run more than once, then you can maybe take some timing out of the equation. Also, double check if you haven't already. I don't want to assume you haven't. That the script obviously can run locally as well as system. Just a couple of simple things that I would check first. But if it's something in the script or against a bunch of different types of devices, especially since it's inconsistent, that would probably need a little bit more in-depth troubleshooting for sure. But maybe a couple of those simple checks first, um, hopefully will help. So Gary's comment here saved all the hard ones for when Johan was gone. It happens. It happens. All right. I see Akos has a question here on running a task sequence and successfully, but with message ID 10008. And in Software Center, the task sequence is still running. Why am I not receiving a message ID 11171? SMSTS looks okay. Can it be because the last action in the task sequence was a reboot action? Not familiar with that specific message ID right off the top of my head. I know that I, in the past, have had issues with the reboot being the last action, unless uh, you set the post task sequence action variable, the SMSTS post action variable. So typically, if I want a restart, and you may be doing this already, but if I want a restart to happen at the end of my sequence, then I'm just going to, let's see, set this right here. Have a shutdown /r/t 0 at the end. But if it's still running, even the task sequence engine may be hung up on something. Curious if SMSTS log is looking okay, if what the final thing is showing in that log, if it's showing the reboot and then that's it, or if there's anything else after that. But typically, yes, if I'm doing a reboot in a task sequence, this is the way that I would handle it. And this, in my experience, has always been a lot cleaner, more consistent, and saved some headaches for sure. See a comment here from Brett over on YouTube. Everybody that stumps me gets swag from Johan. I don't know if I can commit him to that. It seems like today he'll be giving out quite a bit of swag. But we'll see. Maybe I can twist his arm. But I wouldn't hold my breath. Let's see. A great question over here on YouTube. Is it possible to import the Intune security baseline as a configuration policy? I'm just not able to do the necessary exceptions to the baseline. Fantastic question. There are a number of ways that you can use the Intune baseline, or at least apply it to your devices. So, of course, you do have the native, the built-in baseline, which you mentioned here. And that's just these baselines that we were looking at earlier, but they can have their challenges to manage them. So there are some other solutions. One I want to shout out is James Robinson's Open Intune baseline, which actually combines a couple of them. But this basically is using the settings catalog, and you would import that as a configuration profile instead. That's one way to do it. Absolutely, the baselines in general, I think almost all of the settings, if not all of the settings at this point in the baseline, are in the settings catalog. But for all of the settings that are, absolutely, they can be recreated as a configuration profile using the settings catalog. And that is absolutely a way that a lot of organizations are doing that, specifically because for the way they need to deploy them or provide exceptions or what have you. That's exactly what they're doing, is creating that configuration profile, setting the exact same settings over in the settings catalog, and assigning those. But like I said, I'm going to give a shout out to James' Open Intune baseline here, because this does some of that for you, or can do some of that for you. You can see here basically what you do is download that baseline, and then you can import it into Intune using the fantastic Intune management tool by Michael Carlson. We've talked about it many times here on Office Hours. Great tool if you haven't used it and you're managing things in Intune. So this is one method to do it. I would maybe start there. All right, a couple of follow-ups in here while I was talking. Sean's script is failing locally on the same device. Might give proactive remediations a try. Runs almost daily because there's no success. That's a great point. I didn't think about that. And I've had a ticket with Microsoft open for almost a year on this. Yeah, let us know, Sean, if you don't mind following up on if a remediation works or not. Curious too if this was one of the community scripts, or if this is just something that you guys put together. Um, but yeah, if a remediation works, or if it at least gives you a little bit more detail, be curious to see what you find out. Also, just having the addition of both the discovery script and the remediation script, that alone might give you a little bit more information. Um, but yeah, good luck, and please share if you get a little bit further on. If we come across anything, we'll be sure that might help. We'll be sure to share that as well. All right. Jamie, great question. Where do you think we will be in 15 years' time with WSUS being deprecated? Maybe a big push for cloud with no config manager, no task sequence, etc. Yeah, it's, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, not having a crystal ball, it's a little bit tough. I think that is a great question because, as we talked about a little bit last week, with Server 2025 coming out and WSUS is still part of that operating system, we know we're going to have it for quite some time. It's still going to be around for quite some time, at least another 10 years. 15 years' time, yeah, I think we're probably going to see, my personal opinion, we're probably going to see more of a push towards, we talked a little bit about Azure Update Management. We have, which does have a little bit of additional cost for sure. Talked about just, custom PowerShell scripts for some scheduling that get deployed out to devices. That's another option that I've seen. But yeah, I think that we'll probably see more of more cloud solutions is going to be the push there. Similar to what we've seen on the client side in Intune. I'm a very big proponent of co-management and having the Windows Update workload moved over to Intune, and just let those policies dictate when updates are going to come down and be installed from Windows Update itself. And so maybe we'll get some more tools around that for our servers as well. That'd be my take on it. Just I'll follow up here from Akash too. The task sequence is done, should be done successfully, no more actions needed. Yeah, that's interesting. So I would maybe give it a try if, like I said, if you haven't tried this already, if you actually have a restart action at the end, maybe give that task sequence variable a try to see if that helps at all. But I know you've worked with task sequences plenty, so you may be doing that already. Um, Give that a try, and I'll also make note of that as well to see if that's something that we can touch on next week. But with any luck, you'll have it fixed by next week. Stay on the positive side here. Just make sure I got that. All right. Gary, I'm sure you're off by now, but I noticed you had to drop. Great to see you as well. Thanks for joining. Diego had a question here. Do you guys know how I could disable SMB v1 from ConfigMgr to a couple of devices? And there was a follow-up right away. You could use a configuration item and set the required registry keys to disable it. Absolutely. Fantastic way of doing it. You could also do it through a PowerShell script, but the configuration item will ensure that it stays that way rather than just running an ad hoc script. That's the way I would go about doing it for sure. Configuration item with either just the registry key or a PowerShell script that has some additional checks in there, and give that a try. I wonder if there's something that we can pull up that somebody has written already. Looks like Microsoft actually might have a blog post about it, doing that very thing. And this will actually check a number of different items. Will ensure what version of Windows you're on. So this happens to be, this was written in 2019, so it's focused on Windows 10, Server 2016. Keep that in mind. But yeah, I'll make sure to share this link as well. Hopefully that'll make the job a little bit easier. I saw Jamie had a question here. Jamie, is this in reference to Sean's BitLocker script? Is it running under a separate account? I've seen issues with ACLs before when trying to run scripts and the account didn't have access to it. Yeah, great point. I mean, so many of our scripts in Intune or ConfigMgr are running as system, but they could end up running as a different user. So always something to check out with scripts. All right, I got another question over here on YouTube. When required Win32 apps fail and quickly retry again, does it make sense to set a script to detect if the app's installed and if any fail to delete the Win32 app and GRS keys to try again? Sure wouldn't hurt to try from my seat. Trying to think though. So it's failing, very quickly retrying again. And then is it continuing to retry, or is it just after that first retry, it just stops? So I don't know if I don't know if it would cause you to get into a loop where it's just retrying over and over and over and over and over and over. It very well might if you use that. Sure would be worth a shot though. And just for anybody wanting to retry, in the mention of those GRS keys, Johan's got a very popular blog post. I know we've talked about it on here previously. Was recently updated over the summer due to the way that the IME log changed. But this blog post will point you in the right direction of actually retrying Win32 app installs. Just one moment, please. Sorry about that. Yeah, Jamie, follow up here. Put a retry limit on it. After a restart, it has better chance to install, and most of the time it succeeds. Interesting. Yeah, maybe worth putting, I don't know, some sort of, just trying to think outside the box on an app like this, some sort of check to see if there are any pending restarts, or potentially even throwing up a toast notification that before this particular app needs to install. I don't know how widespread you have it in your organization, but you can put up a toast notification that says, hey, we need to restart, and then maybe get the app install going after that. I don't want to make this too complex, but just trying to think of some additional options here. Yeah, so for example, there are a few examples out there online, but Trevor Jones has a post on how to display a user notification within a Win32 app if you put a wrapper around it. Believe PSADT, if you want to use that as a wrapper, has some checks that you could put in place as well. So if we've talked about it several times on here before, and I'm sure you've heard of it before, but the PS App Deployment Toolkit, or App Deploy Toolkit rather, excuse me. You can use this as a wrapper, and you can put in some checks and things like that. Might be especially useful if you can identify why it's the restart that gives it a better chance to install. Maybe that's something that you can check on and remediate without a full restart. So just a couple of other options. See, there's another suggestion in here. Maybe consider delaying your detection script a little bit and see if it's just losing track of the install. Fantastic recommendation. So hopefully a few of those different ways will help or can help. I will be sure to add these to our links for this evening as well. Of course, happy to help. All right. Awesome questions today. They're awesome every week, but happy to see everybody still keeping me on my toes today. Can't let me off too easy without Johan here. But we still have a good 5-6 minutes left if there are any other questions. I've got some great notes from today, some things that I want to look into. But again, for anybody that is experiencing some of these issues, if you join us, next week or even in 2 weeks or later on, or drop us a line on Twitter or LinkedIn or any of the other places you can find Johan and I, definitely be happy to hear any follow-up if you're able to solve these things. And we'll make sure to share it here on Office Hours. Good point here from Jamie. Be careful with notifications. That can reset screensaver lock time and never lock if notifications are spamming every few minutes. Yep, definitely something to look out for. Thank you, Jamie. All right. Any other questions? So Amir's got one for Autopilot and ARM64 devices. What's the best practice to assign the right application architecture to ESP? We're currently assigned 64-bit Chrome app failed as a required app during ESP. Amir, unfortunately, I'm sorry on the ARM side. Not much guidance I can provide. I don't want to end up providing the wrong thing here. I'd just be guessing blindly in the dark on the ARM devices, unfortunately. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions, and I think we've gotten to everything. So awesome. Well, thank you everybody for sticking it out with me this week. Fantastic. I've already said this, but I'll say it again. Fantastic questions. Really great stuff. Appreciate the engagement in the chat here and everyone trying to help each other out as always. Next week we should be back to our regularly scheduled programming with both Johan and I. So for those of you joining, thank you so much and have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Thanks.